Hello everyone and welcome back to Global Pulse. In this video, we look at why Europe's economy is falling behind and what it would take for the continent to compete again. Europe is still one of the world's biggest and richest economic areas. It has brilliant companies, skilled workers, major universities, and 450 million consumers. So why does it increasingly seem to be falling behind the United States and China? The problem is not that Europe has no talent or no money. The problem is fragmentation. Europe often acts like 27 separate economies when it needs the scale of one. Here are the biggest reasons for its problems. 1. No complete capital markets union. Europe has plenty of savings, but it struggles to turn those savings into investment in European companies. A startup in France, Germany, or Italy may face different tax rules, insolvency rules, investor regulations, and financial supervisors. That makes raising money across borders harder and more expensive. So many fast-growing European companies either stay small, sell early, or go to America to raise capital. Europe is trying to build a savings and investments union, but its own institutions acknowledge that financial markets are still fragmented and lack scale. 2. No truly unified stock exchange. Europe does have major exchanges, Euronext, Deutsche Börse, Nasdaq Nordic, and others, but it does not have one deep, truly unified capital market comparable to the United States. A company listing in Europe still confronts different national rules, trading systems, clearing arrangements, taxes, and investor pools. The result is lower liquidity and fewer giant technology companies. American firms can access one enormous pool of capital. European firms often have to navigate many smaller pools. 3. Fragmented railway system. Europe's railway map looks connected, but operating trains across borders can still be surprisingly complicated. Different countries have had different signaling systems, safety rules, power systems, operating procedures, and booking platforms. A cross-border journey may require multiple tickets, and if one train is late, passenger protection can be unclear. For freight, these barriers mean extra equipment, paperwork, delays, and cost. The EU is working to standardize the network, but national technical and safety rules still remain, and common signaling deployment is behind schedule. 4. Fragmented telecom market. Europe has 27 telecom markets, not one true European telecom market. Mobile spectrum is generally licensed country by country. Operators face different rules, licensing systems, and market conditions in every country. That makes it harder to build a few large European telecom companies with the scale to invest heavily in fiber optic network, 5G, cloud connectivity, and future networks. The United States has continental-scale telecom operators. Europe has many smaller national players. The European Commission itself says the sector remains fragmented into 27 national markets. 5. Fragmented electric grid. Europe has an electricity market, but its physical grid is not fully integrated. A country can have cheap renewable electricity while a neighboring country has expensive power. Yet limited cross-border transmission means electricity cannot always flow where it is needed. Permits for new power lines are slow. National grid planning is often disconnected. Interconnectors are insufficient in key places. This raises energy costs for factories and makes Europe less competitive in industries such as chemicals, steel, batteries, and data centers. The Commission is now prioritizing energy highways specifically to remove grid bottlenecks between countries. 6. Free movement exists, but hiring is still not frictionless. Europe does have legal free movement of people. An EU citizen can generally live and work in another EU country, but in practice, hiring across borders is still difficult. A nurse, engineer, electrician, lawyer, or architect may need qualifications recognized again. Tax, pension, social security, and employment rules can be confusing. So Europe has a single market for workers on paper, but not always a seamless labor market in practice. The individual countries in EU still regulates thousands of professions nationally. 7. Different regulations across countries. A company expanding from one EU country into another can face different rules on professional licenses and qualifications, packaging, labeling, and recycling, employment contracts and posted workers, tax compliance, permits and local administration, product approvals, and service standards. For example, construction and professional services remain hard to provide across borders because national regulations differ. Even when EU rules exist, countries can interpret and enforce them differently. 8. Inefficient movement of goods and services. Europe removed many internal customs barriers long ago, but companies still face non-tariff barriers, different labeling requirements, permits, procurement rules, VAT processes, national supply restrictions, and local standards. Services are especially fragmented. It can be far easier to sell a physical product across Europe than to provide legal, construction, healthcare, financial, or professional services across borders. That means Europe is not getting the full benefit of its own market size. 9. Fragmented defense architecture. Europe spends a lot in defense, but often through separate national systems. Different countries buy different tanks, aircraft, ammunition, communication systems, and weapons. This creates duplication, smaller production runs, higher unit costs, and weaker interoperability. Europe therefore spends substantial money, but does not always get continental-scale industrial capacity or a unified defense market. The European Defense Agency describes the sector as fragmented, with insufficient joint procurement. 10. Weak unity in a tougher world. The world is becoming more competitive and more geopolitical. The United States subsidizes strategic industries. China supports its industrial champions. Both can act quickly at continental scale. Europe often needs long negotiations among 27 governments before acting. That weakens its bargaining power and slows investment. A good example is trade with the United States. The 2025 EU-US agreement set a 15% U.S. tariff ceiling for most EU exports. It avoided an even worse trade conflict, but it also showed how exposed Europe's export industries are in a tougher global environment. Conclusion: Europe is not doomed. Its problem is not a lack of wealth, skills, or ideas. Its problem is that it has a common market, but not yet a fully common economic system. A deeper capital market, integrated telecoms, better railways, stronger electricity connections, easier cross-border hiring, common defense procurement, and fewer national barriers could make Europe far more competitive. The key question is simple. Can Europe act like one economic power before the world moves even further ahead? If fragmentation continues, Europe risks becoming a large market for products and technologies created somewhere else. What do you think? Can Europe become more economically united, or will national interests continue to hold it back? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more global economic and geopolitical analysis. This is Global Pulse. See you in the next video.